It really helped me to understand what motivates people. As a great leader, forget about the managing things, but as a great leader, you have to understand I'm working with this team. The very first thing I try to do is what motivates each of these folks? What makes them want to get up and come to work and do their job? And that hit me hard because I thought everybody loves reading books like me. Surely, why can't anybody not like reading books? And what I found was once I started understanding that, that was a skill that I started mastering way early in my career in leadership and management to help. This person reacts this way. This person reacts that way.
Welcome back to Between Fires and Futures. I'm your host, Tonya Terrell. And today I want to talk about leadership and management because they are not the same thing. And confusing the two is where IT leaders could go wrong. Inspiration without structure leads to chaos, and discipline without vision stalls innovation. And in IT, where the stakes are high and the pace is relentless, getting this balance right can make or break a team. My guest today knows this better than most. Mike Lyles is the head of IT at Maxwell Leadership. He's a keynote speaker, certified coach and trainer, and author of The Drive-Thru is Not Always Faster. He has more than 30 years of experience leading Fortune 50 IT teams, building organizations from the ground up, and coaching leaders worldwide. And yet, what speaks volumes about Mike isn't just the titles or the certifications or his extensive experience, but last week I saw Mike at the Maxwell Leadership event, Live to Lead in Orlando. And when I gave him a hug, one of his team members walked up, slapped him on the back and said to me, "He's the best boss I've ever had." And to me, that says so much more about who Mike is as a leader and manager than any credential ever could. So really honored to have witnessed that. And in this conversation, we're going to dig into what poor management really looks like, how leadership without structure breaks down, and the power skills every IT leader should master to move from firefighting to focused execution. So whether you're strong in leadership but struggling in management or the other way around, this episode's going to give you really practical insights to close the gap and build IT teams that actually deliver. Mike, I'm so excited to have you here. I've been looking forward to this conversation. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so let's get into it. You've worked in both really large enterprise IT environments and smaller high impact teams. From your experience, what's the number one misconception you see about leadership in IT today?
So there are so many misconceptions that teams have built over the years. And the first one is that if you're a good manager, then you're by default a good leader. And I think too many times people will rise to that management role and they're highly technical in IT, but they don't understand the soft skills. They don't understand how to be a people person and really build those leadership skills into their environment. And so they've depended so much on their technical skills through the years that it impacts them in a way that they can't reach their full potential as a leader. So yeah, I did the same. I remember when I moved from being an individual contributor to being a leader many years ago. And I loved getting that lead developer role, but I also saw the challenges that were facing me head on that I knew I had to address and drive to be a good leader as well as a manager.
And you did. Sounds like you rose to the challenge.
Yeah, I did. It was great. I've enjoyed it through the years, many years of IT.
Yeah. I mean, I think too often IT leadership gets reduced to being the smartest tech person in the room. And real leadership is about people. It's influence, It's clarity. And if leadership in IT is only about being a technologist, then we've missed it, because leaders who thrive and skillfully lead teams are the ones that can move people, right? Not just projects.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
You mentioned soft skills, and I call them the power skills, because that's really what moves the needle.
That's right.
Yeah. So you've said that great leadership doesn't automatically make someone a great manager. Can you share an example from your own career where that truth became really clear, or this realization really hit home for you?
Oh, yes. I've seen this for decades, but it hit me the strongest recently when I was working on a keynote for one of my clients. And as I began to do research on this and look for examples of this gap, of someone being a great leader, but really struggling at a great manager, I found so many examples, and I begin to recall examples in my long career as well. The best way to identify this is when you have somebody that's a great motivator. They're great with team building and inspiration, but their team loves them and follows them. I see it with sports teams. I use a lot of analogies around my favorite sports team, and the coach is very good at motivating the team, but the team is like, they're not making it. They're not getting to the championship games. And
Right.
so when it comes to those critical A to Z points of the steps to accomplish great things, you see people sometimes that are great at motivating. The team loves them. They think they're inspiring, and they would do anything for them. The problem is they're doing things and they don't know whether or not they're doing the right things because that person's not managing that
Mm.
group well.
Yeah. So, why do you think in so many organizations, and really especially in IT too, that the assumption is that leadership skills translates directly into management excellence?
Yes. Well, they misunderstand and miscalculate that if someone can inspire and galvanize and collaborate, that they might know, how they might not know how to structure and plan things. And I've seen this many times with rising stars, right?
Hmm.
Someone who's just a great individual contributor. They over exceed expectations. They're at the top of their games. They're an A plus player, but then they get seen as somebody who can manage well just because they're so good at delivering at an individual level.
Hmm.
But and they think that there's somebody that can, really drive and lead people. But to those senior leaders looking for folks, I would, say, if you're looking for somebody you want to move up from individual to leadership roles, you gotta be able to identify and see signs of discipline, right? About how do they plan, how do they strategize, and how do they work with others, which also comes critical, in those roles. And I think a lot of times people will misunderstand it, and then you'll see a senior leader bringing someone up, and then that person's not ready to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so good. And I've definitely witnessed that myself. I think what you're saying really underscores like the the risk of promoting someone just because they're inspiring or just because they're technically
Yeah.
sharp. But leadership and management really are different muscles. And the truth is, like, IT teams, all teams need both. Leadership requires both.
Yeah. It's so true.
Yeah. So in IT departments where priorities shift quickly and demands are constant, and I know you're familiar with that,
Yeah.
what does poor management look like in real terms? Like, what does it
Oh,
actually look like in the day to day?
yeah. So this is easy to identify. I've found through the years you can quickly identify a team that's managing poorly if you start seeing a lack of clarity on deliverables. Things are not as clear as they expect. You might be releasing things fast, but you're not releasing the right things.
Mm.
There's a lack of prioritization. So it's everything's in the queue and everything's top priority. It's number one. And you see struggles there because people are like, mine's number one, mine's number one. And not being able to manage that well, great teams, will fail. A lack of alignment around company vision. Many times I've worked in teams where you see just overall the management of those things start to showcase when they're not really going toward what the company was, the how, the purpose of the company.
Right.
And then you start seeing missed deadlines. You start seeing a lack of collaboration with stakeholders. You get teams that want to just do their own thing, and they're like, tell me what you want and I'll go do it. But if you get good collaboration with teams and you get a good cross-functional team relationships, then you'll see success. But if you can identify a poorly managed team right away if you see people just don't get along very well.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. How do you think the ripple effects of poor management show up in technology projects?
So, too many times you'll see things get released, but the outcomes don't fit the needs. It's
Hmm.
fast and it's on time, but then they don't give the end user what they really need. And
Hmm.
we've all seen the triangle, the good, fast, and cheap. And the old saying is you can have two, but not all three.
Hmm.
Um, in this case, if there's poor management, you almost always get fast and cheap, but
Hmm.
you do that at the mercy of good. And so,
Yeah.
I think another thing that you'll see is a lack of passion to understand how the user could use the product. I've been in multiple roles through my career, and a lot of times, one of the things I really stress to companies when I'm working with them is identify your target market, right? Don't be spray and pray, throw it out there and hope everybody grabs it and loves it, because a lot of times we love our product a lot more than we think the users will. And so we think everybody's going to love it just like we do because we built it or we designed it. And it's really understanding, how is the user going to use it? What's the purpose, and so I start asking the who's and how's. So it's like, who is this for? What are we trying to do with this? And then why do they want it? Why are they going to want this product? And then how will they use it when they get it? And if you can do that, then you're starting to build that recipe for success. And I see too many teams that are not managed well, failing to understand who your target market is. It's not just, I'm going to go outside and sell and hope everybody buys it. It's really focused. When you get into good management, you got people who are really looking at the who, the why, the how, and the purpose there.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. And for an IT leader who's an inspiring people leader, but really struggles with like the management side, the operational side, what's the first step to closing that gap? Like, if you were coaching someone like that today, how would you guide them in this area?
Yeah, I know. It's funny that you asked that, because when I was building this keynote and putting together this talk, in my mind, I was like, hey, you have to be a great leader and a manager. If you're not, then maybe this is not for you, right? And so I've gone back and forth on that. But as I started doing a lot of research and really talking to a lot of people in this space and their experiences, what I've come to accept is that you can be strong, you can be inspirational, motivational, and a great leader. And if you lack something in management, you've got to either find a way to accomplish that yourself and learn those skills, or you've got to ensure that you've got the right people in the seats on the bus, that's going to drive those results. And, I've seen, there's stories of Steve Jobs, right? He was a great inspirational motivation. Yeah. He'd tell you how he wanted, but Tim Cook was the guy that did the work. Right. So, and others, Martin Luther King, he was a world changer, but he wasn't the guy setting up the rallies and the meetings and all that. Somebody was doing that for him because he knew that somebody could do that, so, both of these folks had passion, they had inspiration, but they found the right person to drive those operations for them.
Yeah, that's so true. I think about even in my own leadership, among my own leadership team, even the way we run on EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And if you're familiar with that, it was so eye-opening to me when we first rolled it out a couple years ago, in that, I think I'm a strong leader and a visionary, and I really have to work at the management skills. Like, they don't come naturally. And I think for most visionaries, they probably don't. So it's something that, when I realized, like, EOS separates these two seats out, that there is a visionary and an integrator. And the visionary really embodies the leadership, and the integrator really embodies the manager.
Yes.
And to begin to see them in two different seats and realize, okay, in order to accomplish what I want to accomplish with my company, with my team, I need to integrate those two seats into what I embody. And one takes more work for me than the other. And I'm sure that's true for everybody. I'm sure people pull towards one side or the other.
Oh, it is. And I agree with you on that. I think, some companies may not have the luxury of having those two roles. And so you're going to have to decide, hey, I've got to fill both of those roles, but you have to have that in place, right? Because if you have the great leadership, but you don't know how to get there, it's like driving without a map, right? Or driving without GPS and hoping you find out where you're going. And then the opposite is, you may be a great manager and you're ready to really put this together, but if you don't know the purpose, the why, and what the company's doing and really driving that leadership, you may be setting setting goals and going after something, and your team's like, we don't follow him. We don't listen to him. He's not good. Right.
Right. Yeah. I love that point, because the gap really is leaders who can light people up, but not land the plane, and managers who can keep the trains running, but can't move hearts and minds.
That's right.
And both sides break down on their own. The magic is when you connect the leadership with management, the inspiration with the discipline. So, yeah, that's
Yes.
such a good point. And it's got me really thinking about this sort of more holistically.
Yes. Good.
Yeah. So, you work for an organization known for developing leaders worldwide. How have John C. Maxwell's principles influenced your own approach to blending leadership with effective management?
Wow. So it's hard for me anytime I do a talk, keynote, podcast, or anything, not to just completely just gush about John Maxwell,
Yeah,
because
he's
anybody that
fantastic.
knows him,
Yeah.
and when I go to events and I ask people in the room, raise your hand if you know John Maxwell, and a few people raise their hands, I'm like, come on, you're better than this. You got to know John Maxwell. It's
Hmm.
like he's the most popular person in the world to me as far as leadership.
Hmm.
And so he's the master, right? And there may never be anyone that can impact their lives around leadership and management the way John has for so long to so many people. And so when I'm looking at how he influenced me, as you said earlier in the intro, I've been in IT for years, but in 2021 I said I just want to go into coaching. I want to do coaching full time with John's principles. I become a certified Maxwell coach. And I love where that took me, but I was at one of their events and got a beautiful opportunity, very serendipitous for me to be talking to folks. And I jokingly said, "Hey, if you ever need an IT guy, I'm your man." And they're like, "What?" Our IT director is resigning next month. And so I've been here for 3 years. It's been a beautiful journey with them, growing with John, getting to work with their executive team. But what I look at from John's teachings and the things that I've learned both as a coach, both as just a reader and a study of John from like 25 years ago till now, is his books are so amazing. I remember John talking about someone saying to him, your concepts are also simple. And John's like, yeah, my books are simple, my concepts are simple, but they're hard to implement
Hmm.
because it might be easy and simple for you to read and understand, but they're hard to implement. That's why
Yeah.
people struggle with leadership. And so I look, I'll mention a couple of books here, 3 books that really stood out to me that I've used both studying before I'd become a coach, during a coach, and also as an employee there. Is I look at the first one is one of my favorites is called The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth.
Yes.
And, John quotes in that book, you're not going to change your life until you change something you do every day. And he talks about that, how critical that is for us as people. And I challenge everybody, whether, I have a lot of people who say, well, I'm not in a corporate world. I'm like, read this book. This is not about corporate. This is how you manage your life, your
Yeah.
family, your friends, your community. This book is crisp and it'll teach you how to grow professionally, how your teams will grow. So it helps teams. If you're somebody who's in leadership and really saying, I want to be a better leader, but also want to really grow management, 15 Laws of Growth is great. It'll help you exponentially change. Um, the other we call ECFC, which is Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. It's a powerful book about building relationships, right? And John really simplifies the art of finding common ground with other people and really being able to understand and communicate effectively. Because a lot of times, and it's just like the title, everybody communicates, but few connect. We've all been there, right? You've been to events, you've been on watch people on the stage, and this person talks for an hour and you're like, I could listen to this person all week, right?
Yeah.
And then you listen to some people who talk for 2 minutes and you're like, please shut this person up.
Yeah.
So they're not building that bond. And this book really helps people who want to lead and manage to understand how to get your message to your people, but also to your peers and your leadership and others that you're working with. It's a powerful book. And then the last is my favorite is it's called The 5 Levels of Leadership.
Mhm.
It's one of the best books on how to grow, 5 simple levels: position, permission, production, people development, and pinnacle. We all start at position, right? People follow us because they have to. And then when you start realizing you're moving and growing is when you get to that permission level where they're following you because they want to. And then production is they follow you because you're doing good things. And then the fourth is they're following you people development because you're doing things for them. So it's an amazing book. It works on both leadership and management, and I find it to be one that was the most simple, and it seems complex, but the most simple of all those three for
Mhm.
me to really grasp how to grow. And if anybody wants to grow, that's amazing set of books.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing those resources. One that my leadership team read either earlier this year or end of last year that was really impactful for us and really started to shift the dynamics of the leadership team was the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Is
Yes.
that the title of it? Yeah, 5 dysfunctions of a team.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
such
yeah.
a
That's
good one too.
yeah. This is very good. That's a very good book.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites in terms of, you know, leading and managing a team,
Yes.
and really, really powerful for my leadership team to read as part of our EOS, quarterly
Hmm.
reading.
Yes.
But yeah, so good. So if John were speaking directly to IT leaders right now, what do you think he'd say about the leadership management balance? What would like be his biggest message or the
Yeah.
takeaway he'd want them to have?
So I believe he would say that if you serve people well and you understand not only the vision, but also the path to get there successfully, and including the steps from A to Z to reach those milestones, you will be successful. But he would also say, get a mentor. John has
Mhm.
many mentors. I have many mentors. And as I've coached and trained people through the years, one of the things I say to people is don't limit yourself to one, right?
Yeah.
Somebody might coach you on how to eat well. I need
Right.
that every day.
Yeah.
Someone how to exercise, how to do work, how to do your, to manage people. You need someone, you may have 10 people coaching you, but you need mentors in this world. And like John says, he says, I'm 78 and I still have people that I go to that mentor me,
Yeah, that's awesome.
and we underestimate the value of that. I learned
Yeah.
so much from both coaching, but also being coached by
Mhm.
people daily and weekly.
Yeah, same, same. I'm always surrounded by incredible mentors, and it is why I join masterminds because then you like
Yes,
get into a group of 100 mentors who
that's
all
right.
have an expertise in a different area or a different niche, and they all add value in different ways. And I think that's like my life is blessed with mentors through these groups.
Yes.
Yeah. So Maxwell says leadership is about influence too, right? Nothing more, nothing less, really, at the end of the day. But in IT, influence without follow through collapses fast. I mean, I'm sure that's true outside of IT as well. Um, but the leaders who thrive take the vision, set the tone, then manage the work to so their influence has weight. Otherwise, it's vision without execution, and execution is what turns vision into outcomes. So, I'd
Right.
love for you to talk a little bit about that as well, because I feel like that really is the crux of what we're discussing today.
Yeah. So, as I've built up teams and really kind of help people, you know, grow the teams. Um, I think the first thing you have to do when you're kind of building that bond within teams is you've got to think outside the box, right? Too
Mhm.
many times we get stuck in an office in a cubicle, or we're at home in a small office and we don't really step out and see how the world's operating, right?
Mhm.
It's one thing to say I built this house. It's another thing to say people love what I've built, right? And we
Mhm.
got to focus more on our purpose more than our outcomes. And then when I think about purpose, yeah, I love the first words of the book, The Purpose Driven Life, and it says it's not about you. And oh my goodness, I've seen player after player, I'm calling them players, rallying for position, competing for the next rung on the ladder, being credit makers, not credit takers, and really forgetting that we can be part of something bigger if we work together. And
Yeah.
I see failures on teams that just you get into that politics of work where it's just, it's people forget what we're here for and what we're trying to do, and how little some of the things that we just really go deep into and let eat our minds control us. And
Yeah.
so, John talks about being a servant leader. We can be successful if we serve others, but I can tell you a number of times I've let, office and corporate politics just ruin a good thing. And
Mhm.
John says you got to forget yourself. So many people today need to really heed that advice.
Yeah.
And I think about Zig Ziglar, which I'm sure you're aware.
Mhm.
He was great friends with John, and I got to meet him once, and he's such an amazing guy
Yeah, that's so
before he
cool.
passed. And Zig said, you can have everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want.
Yes.
And simple quote, a powerful quote about, how amazing this world would be if we could just get everybody to follow that simple advice.
I know. It is so simple. And God, can you imagine the world if everybody followed that advice?
Yeah.
It'd be a utopia of sorts.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and I think that is the one driver of our organization is at the end of the day, we're in service to
Hmm.
the IT leader. Whatever their needs are, we're in service to them, and that's our guiding principle. It's our North Star, and it keeps everything very, very simple. As long as what we're doing is serving them, then we're on track.
Yes.
So I know we've talked a little bit about this, Mike, that you've built, PMOs, QA teams, development organizations, really from the ground up. What are some of those power skills that are non-negotiable for IT leaders who want to succeed long term?
So I do think it goes back to to our discussion around having servant leadership, understanding, how do people build the right product and not getting so locked up um in your world that you don't see what really is going on outside, right? A lot of times, as I mentioned, I built this house, but and it's another thing to say people love living in this house, right?
Mhm.
It's not just making it an accomplishment. And so what I found when I've worked with PMOs, QA teams, building these organizations, I raised my hand a lot in different companies that I've worked for as they started building these new teams because I wanted to expand my skill set
Right.
to learn those new areas.
Yeah.
Um, and the one part that it's helped me is now that I'm in a different roles, and as I step into a new role or I come to Maxwell Leadership and I'm working here, I can say, well, I know how they did QA. I know how we've excelled in QA, or I know how we've excelled in building out a PMO, and let's do the same here. You can bring those skills with you, and everything builds upon that, and
Yes.
then and it does help you grow. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because you're right. Frameworks change, tools change. There's nothing but change, but those kinds of skills, they never expire and they translate across all areas of your life holistically. And one of the things
yes,
that I love about leadership and, one of the things I love about entrepreneurship is like how it calls you forward to continually grow, to in order
yeah,
to hit your targets, to grow a business and to lead teams. It isn't about it. It isn't necessarily about the targets. It's so much about how you're serving your audience and how you are
exactly.
developing and growing and evolving yourself.
Yes.
Because if you're stagnant, then the organization can only evolve to the level that your consciousness is at.
That is so true. John talks about the law of the lid in one of his 21 laws of
Mhm.
leadership. And the law of the lid is the organization below you is only going to go as high as you go, right?
Yeah.
So if you limit yourself, they're not going to grow with you. They're going to grow to where you are at the most, but
Yeah.
you've got to keep raising yourself to help them.
Yes, absolutely. And I just don't think that's possible without a mentor or a coach,
Correct.
because you have blind spots. You don't even see where your lid is, right?
And
And
that's
it
right.
takes another set of eyes to be able to point it out and coach you past it. So, yeah, I think that's so important to address. And it is. So one of the things I love about leadership is I'm always having to raise the bar. It calls me into higher expressions of myself constantly. And
Yeah.
if I don't accept the invite for that, then my business is stuck. My
That's
teams are
right.
stuck. Everything gets stuck.
That is right. So true.
So IT moves, even like especially today, breakneck speed with AI just like exponentially accelerating that.
Right.
How can leaders ensure that operational discipline keeps pace with this crazy time of innovation and acceleration? Like, how do you keep the guardrails in place while chasing innovation?
Yeah. So, years ago, I would have said Ferris Bueller, and everybody would know who I'm talking about. There's people in
Yes.
this audience that probably won't know who this is, but there's a movie from the '80s called
I
Ferris
love that
Bueller's Day
movie.
Off, and I'm dating myself saying it, but he had such a great quote near the end that said, "Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it." And
Yeah.
so, I love that quote for many reasons. but it applies here as well, right? We get caught up in this is how we've done things for years and years, and then all of a sudden AI has just taken off in the
Yeah.
last couple of
It's an
years. I mean, it
exciting
went from,
time.
yeah, and it's crazy what you can do. My daughter shows me stuff she does. My son shows me things they do. It's amazing the power of AI. Now, teams get really into that, and they're like, I want to do it too, right? And so we have to understand, like you were saying, what is too much, how, we don't want to jump in the deep end really quick, but we also don't want to stand outside the pool and watch everybody jumping in as
Right.
well. So I think you got to stay connected. You've got to engage with other people. A lot of people love to go to work and finish work and be done and just have personal time after that. I think you have to add a little extra time to yourself. It goes back to the 15 laws of growth. You got to do something different every day. Webinars, this podcast, other podcasts, reading books, staying. There's a lot of Instagram sites and Facebook sites and other sites where people are just really piling in what's going on with their side of AI,
Yeah.
but also understanding from your perspective with your companies, where does it fit for me, right? We know we want to do it, but how do we build that in without going so deep that we, jump too far? And I
Yeah.
think you have to define that. You have to define those ranges.
Yeah.
I've got to get in. I've got to get involved. If you're not thinking about AI and looking at how AI can impact your company, no matter
You're
what company
you're
you're
behind.
using, you're
Yeah.
behind already.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I mean, it's clear that managing, like those management skills really play a role in
Yeah.
preventing that shiny object syndrome with tech initiatives. I mean, we're
Yes.
experiencing it's so exciting and it's everywhere, and people are doing such cool things with AI that it's easy to want to change everything with AI. And so we are constantly having to like have those gut check moments with ourselves and say, okay,
Yes.
here is the goal for the year. Here is our focus for this quarter. Does this get us there?
That's right.
Yes, it sounds cool. Yes, it would be awesome, but let's focus on the things that move the needle that are meaningful for our organization.
That's right. That's right.
Um, but yeah, I know, we're having hundreds of conversations with IT leaders, and they really feel the pressure to chase AI today. And it's always something, or it's,
Yeah.
the next shiny thing, whatever that is.
Hmm.
It's AI right now. But leadership is about choosing what matters, and management is about making sure it sticks.
That's right.
And without that balance, innovation can easily turn to noise. And that's really been my experience. Like, we have to stay so disciplined
Hmm.
in questioning all the fun, cool things we can do with AI, and ensuring that they are just moving the needles that really matter for us.
That's right. Yeah, I think you talk about the shiny object. I mean, I think it's so easy to get sold on new things.
Oh
This
yeah.
is why supermarkets line those
Oh, I
rows at the
know.
checkout lane with candy bars that I've eaten. People
Uh-huh.
can't see me, but if they could, they could see I've eaten a lot of candy bars. And so that you can't let that catch you, right? It can't, pull you in.
Yeah.
We need these things, right? But I think too many times, and I've said it in so many different companies I've worked with, you must know the problem that you're trying to solve and then determine what technology is going to solve it, right?
Yeah.
I see people buying race cars to drive to work, um, metaphorically, they're
Yeah.
buying race cars to drive to work, but all they need is just a certain solution, and people, are trying to overkill it with AI. You may not need as much AI as you think. You may not need these new tools, but understand what you're trying to solve, what you're trying to do, and then let those solutions drive what technology you want to build in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such great advice. Mike, looking back over your career, what's the toughest leadership or management lesson you've learned through experience the hard way?
So very early in my career, I moved from being an individual contributor to a team lead, as I mentioned. And as I moved over to project manager, I was inspired by these amazing books by people, of course, like John and Stephen Covey and Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, Jeffrey Fox. And if you don't know, now all those other names you probably know, and you're probably like, who's Jeffrey Fox? If
Yes,
you
that's
don't,
exactly what I thought. I don't know Jeffrey
yeah.
Fox.
So Jeffrey Fox became a friend of mine afterwards, but he wrote a book called How to Become CEO. It's an amazing small book. It's one of my favorite books of all time.
I'm going to pick
Has
that up.
has short stories in there. Every chapter is a short story, kind of similar to my book.
Mm-hmm.
But I love this book so much that I bought 15 copies when I became a manager. And so I was a project manager. I bought 15 copies. I thought everybody's going to love this, right? I walked in, I handed out 15 copies of my book. And one of the people on my team said, I thought they're going to love me for this. They're going to love the book. I mean, I love this. Why don't they?
Right.
One of my folks said, "You're not going to motivate me, Mike, by making me read these. I hate books." And so that was my first experience, where I realized how different people are motivated and what motivates people, and I later learned the love languages and the work love
Yeah.
languages and things like that. But it really helped me to understand what motivates people. As a great leader, forget about the managing things, but as a great leader, you have to understand I'm working with this team. The very first thing I try to do is what motivates each of these folks? What makes them want to get up and come to work and do their job? And that hit me hard because I thought everybody loves reading books like me. Surely, why can't anybody not like reading books? And what I found was once I started understanding that, that was a skill that I started mastering way early in my career in leadership and management to help, this person reacts this way, this person reacts that way.
Right. Yeah. So you really have to understand what drives your team. What are the levers you could pull for each person on your team to
Yes.
move them? And that takes serious investment in people and really, really serving those people that you lead.
Yes. So true.
Yeah. Yeah, I can think of so many examples across my career too that, some of the tough lessons. I remember being a very, very young manager. I was an individual contributor too. Got promoted into my first management role in my mid-20s, very, very long time ago. And I was coaching. I was a sales trainer, coaching people doing lead generation with tech companies. And I remember my heart was to serve the person that I was coaching, but I was very direct and it didn't have the best delivery, didn't know how to deliver a message, just sort of spewed it out. And a mentor of mine, I'll never forget this, took me, she said, let's go for a little walk. And we walked out of the building and we went for a few laps around the office building. And, she left me with this phrase that I've never forgotten. And I probably passed it along to so many leaders that I've worked with in my companies as well. And that was, when you are coaching people, when you're leading people, you have to think about you want to leave them with the message that you're delivering. You don't want them thinking about the messenger. So you have to be very
Right.
intentional about the way that you deliver that message. And you have to know the audience that you're delivering that message to and approach it
Yes.
in a way that they can hear it and receive it and get excited to improve. You don't want them, left with thinking about the messenger and how much they disliked the way that you delivered the message. And that's
Yes.
just always stuck with me. And, it makes me pause before I have to give really candid or hard feedback, because if they're going to get defensive, if they don't feel safe, then they're never going to receive the message and can't improve. And so that was a tough lesson for me,
Yeah.
because I wanted to do really well as a young leader, and it made me realize, wow, I've got to be super intentional and know who I'm talking to and give it in a way that they can receive it and make them excited about making the improvement. And it's
Yes.
something that I still have to really work at, because my natural tendency, ask my family, is just to spew it out.
Right. Well, it's funny you say that because communication's hard, right? We think
Yeah.
it's easy, but it's not. It's hard. And the other piece I would add to this lessons that I've learned along the way is as I became more in leadership roles, leadership and management roles, I was working for some senior people many years ago, and I had one VP that I was working for. I used to go to him and start just unrolling everything that's going on. And he used to say, "Stop, Mike, tell me what I need to know,
Yeah.
not what you want me to know." And some of the best advice ever, it taught me how to be very succinct in my message
Yes.
to senior leaders who don't have all the time in the world to listen to every single thing I did to accomplish this task. Just
Yeah.
did you complete it? Are you good? Are we on track? Are we off track? EOS kind of things.
Yes.
But it's on track, off track, and if I don't need to talk about it, if you're on track, let's go. Yeah. And so great advice. And because you're excited, right? When you're a young leader, you're excited and you want to tell everybody, but just understand they respect it. But as a young leader, you have to understand your bosses don't always have time to hear every single thing you did. I did A, B, C, D. Just tell me you completed it. Tell me you're on track, and get really good at summarizing that story in there, knowing your audience is like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I kind of, what this makes me makes me think about is that the wins don't shape you as much as a leader. The mistakes, the failures,
Yes.
the coachable moments where you had to course correct, that's where the real growth happens. And that's
absolutely.
I think that's, as leaders, that's why it's so important that we create safe environments where people feel that they can make a mistake, that they can, not show up perfectly, and that it's safe to fail, because there's so much learning in that.
Yeah, I agree completely.
And I think at the end of the day, people follow you as a leader because you're real, not because you're perfect.
That's right.
People connect to leaders who've stumbled and owned it and keep going. And that really is where trust is built, in the scars, not in the trophies. I think that's the part that sticks with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone's listening today that is strong in leadership but weak in management, or vice versa, either way, what's the one thing that they could start doing tomorrow to close that gap?
So I would say learn from others. There are so many people who have been exactly where you are, experiencing exactly what you're going through. And I think through my career, as I grew and learned these things, this fact, it hit me like, oh, I'm going through this. Nobody's ever had this experience. But then I realized, as talking to people, they've had the exact same problem. People are going through exactly what you're going through. And there's quotes all over, I love motivational quotes. It's like, be careful when you're working with other people, because you don't know, everybody's going through something, right?
Yeah,
and they're struggling with something, and you just never know how well someone's holding that down. And so I say to people that are just having that struggle, don't feel embarrassed to ask other people, hey, I'm having this issue. And they're probably going to open up and say, wow, I'm having the same thing. Yeah. Let's work together on this. Or they may be someone who's seasoned and has learned this and said, you know what, I can help you because I've gone through that, and here's how I come through it. Yeah. Listening to great podcast. I love this podcast. I'm not saying it because I'm here, but I do love it. I love learning from what other people do. And, keep growing your podcast playlist with people, and understanding the right ones, right? And where it can help you, but really engage with people. And I say this to people. I've worked with a lot of people who are both extroverted and introverted. And I say to introverts, right, if you feel struggles like really getting out there face to face with people, or online, face to face with people, is read online, engage online, chat with people. You're hiding behind the screen if you have to. But the more you can engage, whether you're introverted or extroverted, the better you're going to be. We learn from, AI was built off of experiences that people have right. put together, and it's just building all that together and sending it back to us. A lot of that, it's just, none of us are as strong as all of us. And so if you learn from others, that's my best experience, is the more people that I can interact with that has gone through the things I've gone through or have already experienced it, the better. And the more people I can help by saying, I've gone through this and here is how I can help you. I think we can learn from each other so much. Yeah.
And that would create such a beautiful world.
Yes.
All do that. That's my wish for the world.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I think I want to add to that too. You talk about the introvert extrovert piece. And, the one thing that I really have learned probably in the last 10 or 15 years is that we are not stuck with any way of being, and that these are all muscles we can grow.
That's right.
I am a natural introvert. I'm a natural introvert. I shot 4 of these podcasts today. I'm going to go chill out, go to a yoga class tonight, and have a quiet weekend, because I need that time to recharge my battery. Right. But engaging with you and like Leslie Bonset, who I talked to before you, those conversations are, so important, and I want to have them, and I want to put this message out there so that everybody can learn from these incredible speakers like you. And so I got to get over myself a little bit. I got to get over that shyness and this fear of putting myself out there and just do it anyway. And I
So
think
true.
it's the same thing, right? Like leadership versus management. I think the takeaway for every IT leader listening is stop leaning on what only comes naturally.
Hmm.
These are skills you can build. If you're a visionary leader, strengthen your management muscle. If you're a disciplined manager, stretch into leadership. And Mike just shared some incredible books and resources. And there's so much available today. There's an overabundance of resources to stretch and grow in this way.
That's
But
right.
we're not fixed. Like we have neuroplasticity. Our neural nets in our brain can we rewire themselves just by what we expose ourselves to over and
Yeah.
over. So these are things that you could practice and stretch and grow. And I think that's really exciting to me.
Well, yeah, and Steve Jobs always talked about you connect the dots backwards, not forwards.
Yes,
You know
that's so
how the
true.
things landed where they are, and
Yes.
and I say, and I've heard someone else, and I'm paraphrasing this quote, but it was around the more shots you take, the more luck you get, right?
Yes.
And so I think the more you get yourself out there and meet with people, connect with people, the more chance you're going to have that story where, wow, I was talking to X. And they showed me this, and my whole life is different because of that one thing that I did. And if you're not out there doing it, you're not going to have those moments of that luck, which is not really luck. It's the serendipitous moments that you have where you're stepping out there, meeting people, and suddenly somebody says something, and it's like there's a dot, right? And it's
Yeah.
it's adding to the next part of my life. And so,
Yes.
the more you're engaged with people and interact with the world, the better it's going to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a pretty powerful. That's a mic drop moment. It's a
Yeah,
pretty powerful place to pause.
right.
Mike, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience. I know people are going to walk away with practical ways to rethink how they're leading and managing their teams. And for those listening, if you want to keep learning from Mike, be sure to connect with him on LinkedIn. I'll put the link in the show notes. He's always sharing valuable insights on leadership, management, and building strong IT organizations. So definitely connect with him there. And if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow Between Fires and Futures so you never miss these types of conversations we're having with IT leaders who are really navigating the same challenges you all are and continuing to build for tomorrow. So thank you for joining us. Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you.